Aloha, everyone, and welcome to Aquarian Radio, to aquarianradio.com. I'm your host, Jenna Kira Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Lessin, and today we're doing a discussion panel, with Michael Lee Hill and Karen Christine Patrick on aliens, Anunnaki, ar-bordon, and us. And this is part of the Aquarian Radio Network, and you can see more details of the show on aquarianradio.com. And a little bit about the legacy of ar-bordon. I'm not going to go into the whole story because I've got it on the website, and I have a bio for Michael Lee Hill and Karen Christine Patrick as well on aquarianradio.com, and we're going to go into this once we get into the show. The legacy of ar-bordon. Ar-bordon was the mysterious figurehead of a clandestine physics study group called the Life Physics Group. It was most active in the 80s and 90s. The participants did not use their real names and utilized unconventional tools for attempting to map out the energetic substrate of reality and to create what they called the working model. Also, ar-bordon and other members of the LPG participated in joint projects with human hybrids, extraterrestrial groups of various kinds. In the years before Borden's death in 2013, there was a now defunct internet forum where new people came in to learn about the working model and the writings of ar-bordon. And just to let you know, there is currently a group on Facebook called The Writings of ar-bordon, which is spelled B-O-R-D-O-N. And so we talk about all kinds of good things like the coming new physics, extraterrestrial contact, the rise of humanity's latent psychic abilities, and other topics. Lately we've been talking about who is ar-bordon, what's been going on since his death, and what's going on with the Anunnaki, Planet X, Nibiru, and the other aliens that are interacting with humanity. So I'm going to just stop right there, and let me bring on co-host Sasha, Dr. Sasha Lessin. Hold on one second.
Aloha.
Are you able to talk, sweetheart? Hi,
yes,
honey.
You can hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Or I can hear you.
Okay, so this is a really exciting program. The Linkage Institute has been meeting regularly trying to save us from extinction in essence. And there's a planetary war between two factions from the planet Nibiru, that of King Nannar and Prince Marduk. And I'm very confused about which one's in charge. I think they're confused and they're assassinating each other. There's not that many of them, but Michael has had the good fortune of talking directly face-to-face with Marduk, and I'm so excited to hear. I'm so confused. Penray says that Marduk's been in charge here. Others say that it's Nannar who's been in charge here, and I would really like some clarification.
Well, I
okay,
can tell you,
yeah,
that's a great starting point, because actually when I met them, they addressed this very issue. And I'll tell you, because first of all, this is in 2008, and I've said this before, I didn't even know what an Anunnaki was. And so what they were telling me, I just remembered it. It didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. But they told me that their own succession of kingship was based on the precessional cycle. And with the upcoming age of Aquarius, which is interesting, we're on Aquarius Radio, huh? That with the upcoming age of Aquarius, how the Anunnaki actually relate to mankind, and how the Anunnaki, their actual succession of kingship, changes with the age of Aquarius. And what this individual told me, who was of the Anunnaki, he said that for the first time, they've decided to let new blood into the kingship line. And they said that they found out the hard way, just like everyone else, when you bottleneck the evolution of DNA, a bloodline, there starts to be bad anomalies. And they've decided to let other blood. So I guess why I'm saying this is there's only one person that fits, and that's Inky. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I do believe, and Zachariah Sitchin said the exact same thing, that all signs are pointing towards the return of Inky. And that's really interesting because of everything we're getting into today, because back in 2008 is when they told me my own mission here, which is pretty much to be a messenger of Inky, or heard it called Inky's human counterpart. You know, Inky here in these human clothes, however you want to look at it. Well, at this point in my life, I told you I didn't even know what an Anunnaki was, so the name really meant nothing to me. So I asked them probably this is late 2008, through this telepathic communication we're having. I said, listen, if you are who you say you are, and my link to this individual that you're telling me his name is Inky, why don't you put it into a crop circle? I knew I'm a student of the subject of crop circles, and I am one of those people that absolutely believes that these are not Doug and Dave, two old men, or college kids with boards on their feet, you know. So right. I knew if the name Inky showed up into a crop circle, I would know, and that would be my confirmation. But the next thought that occurred to me was, what a silly request. Can you imagine like a crop circle showing up and in cursive it says Inky? Like, who would believe it anyhow?
Right.
But I thought, well, you know what, you'll figure it out. And I also then at that point I said, you know, while we're at it and, you know, the sky's the limit, why don't you encode it also with some information that only I would be able to decode? Then I would be for sure that this was confirmation. Well, this is in, like I said, the end of 2008, and a couple years go by, nothing. But in 2011, in Italy, a crop circle showed up, and then words Ia, Inky were encoded in binary into that crop circle. So, lo and behold, I was like, wow, okay, you know. But the point is that I really started doing a lot of research, and also it is encoded with information that only I would be able to decode, and that is it's encoding a 432 frequency, and I'm a musician, and I was guided into this knowledge of the most cosmic, harmonious frequencies that, like, light is using to become matter. And lo and behold, the Inky crop circle is encoding a 7-pointed star, which is created by a 4 octaves below 432 A note. And, you know, I could get into detail of how I figured that out, but let's just say it dealt with revelation when I actually realized what was happening, that this was, I had a cymatic image in one hand because I was making these crystal healing discs, and it was of a 27 hertz, 4 octaves below 432, so I had it in my hand, I could see it. I'm going, why does this look so familiar? But in my right hand, I had just made a crystal disc out of that Inky crop circle. And I looked over, and I went, oh my God. The tears flowed. It was like a serious revelation for me. So the reason I'm even sharing this is just a couple days ago, I was thinking, boy, I've pretty much shared everything I need to share, and lo and behold, another crop circle just appeared that's encoded in the exact same way with the exact same method of encoding ASCII binary into this crop circle. And it's a little bit different wording of a warning / message that we already got back, I think it was 2002, with that crop circle of the alien holding a disc, and they decoded the disc. And it said, actually I got it right here. It says, beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. Believe there's good out there. We oppose deception. But the point of this, that was in 2002. Now this new crop circle that just showed up on June 23rd encodes the phrase, beware of ET bearing gifts. It's the same message, you know, and here this is encoding that message in ASCII binary code in the exact same way as the Inky crop circle from 2011. So all of a sudden we got a lot to talk about.
We do. I have a question popping up about that right now, but I think we should bring in Karen, and she can introduce herself a little bit, how she got into this. Karen, are you Are you live there? Did I get this working?
I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, good.
Go ahead and do a little intro about yourself and how you got into the work, and then we'll begin our roundtable.
Well, I love hearing Michael's story again and again. Okay, so how I got into this particular level, I had been doing, since 2009, I had been doing automatic writing. I had quite an extensive amount of automatic writing that I did, and that was for me to get used to the fact that I'm able to telepathically communicate with a wide variety of beings. And so as I started this process, more and more beings came through. A lot of them were ancestors, because I have a Native American thing, and I had Native American ancestors that came in to guide me. So different ways I contacted different beings. And in one case, I was doing something I called soul singing, which was kind of basically, in tongue singing, whatever I felt like. I'm a singer, and it felt really good to just let go and be free. And this really low, I was dropped into my lower register. I felt I had to sing really, really low. And I started singing in another language, and I recognize this language. This is a language that I'm speaking when I'm waking up, and I don't know what it is. I should record it sometime and find out. At the end of this, it sounded a little like Klingon. I felt like I was a lady Klingon singer. That's kind of how low register and the language, the way it was. But at the end of this, I said out loud, I said, the name, I said, I am Go-D, Go-Dash. Of course, my voice was a lot lower. And it turned out to be, Go-D, Go-Dash, turned out to be an ancestor. And I spent quite a bit of time interacting with this being. And after a while, this being said that he was my ancestor. And I'm kind of going, okay, I can handle ET and I can handle an ancestor, but an ET ancestor, what's that about? And he told me he was Anunnaki. And I have to say I came into the Anunnaki thing kind of kicking and screaming a little. I wanted to, channel Pleiadians and Andromedans and something really, that I perceived as being kind of lighter, fun beings. And I end up with a gigantic 12-foot ancestor who proceeded to tell me a lot of things and also to help me with the part of myself that had some damage as a person in the divine masculine, divine feminine balance. I had too little divine masculine, and I needed a backbone. So there he was, and with me, and telling me he was a warrior, and telling me things about being strong, and he was such a help to me. But he also told me a little bit about the Anunnaki situation and the incursion into our genome. And, of course, I find out I'm in that family, of course, because he's an ancestor. And basically, what he's saying, a couple things. One of them was that the Anunnaki has to be understood that there's factions. You have to understand why it's so confusing, just like you said, Sasha, as to what's going on, because there are factions. And one time you're hearing these are the bad guys, and the other time you're hearing those are the bad guys. And it's really a really big family feud. So that's been something I've been trying to process and understand. And also, there was some kind of humorous aspects to it, too. It's kind of like they made us. So he said one odd thing to me. He says, when I was 9 feet tall, I thought humans were just our, pets, our underlings. I had no regard for them. Then he said, when I was 12 feet tall, I thought very differently and saw the divine touch within them. And I thought, what the heck is he talking about, 9 feet tall, 12 feet tall? And that was really fascinating to me, because I found out later that some beings have, including humans, it's called Marfan syndrome. They can have an adult onset growth in height. And I believe Charles Hall said that about the tall whites when he was interviewed, that they have this extra growth spurt, and they shoot up. And when they do, it's not really good for them, because it actually overloads their organs, so they don't function really well. But King Akhenaten had the syndrome. Abraham Lincoln had the syndrome. And I just did a talk at the Texarkana Edgar Casey group about giants. So I got into how all of this giantism that's in our genome. But we're our average height comes out at 5 to 6 feet for a male. So we're literally the Anunnaki mini-me. And then a lot of things cranked around into my head of what's that like, and I thought about, I'm a parent, and when you have children and they act out kind of your worst moment, like they might say a swear word or act, and you're more bad about that because it reveals who you are than anything. Like you really will give them a good lecture because you're more aghast at them repeating what you are in your down moments. And so we are, as humans, acting out a lot of the things that they are that maybe they don't want to be, but it's in us now because of them. And so that's some of the, I would feel like it's a kind of a parent thing. Like your parent might want to, clamp down on you because you're acting out. So that would be the in-law side of the box of controlling humans because they're just so out of control. And then the inky thing, I feel like, as a parent, is the sort of the hippie parent, the like, let them be free-range humans, let them kind of, be who they are, which when we do act out, we kind of have issues, and we're literally reflecting the same conflicts that those beings have, but they're more sophisticated and don't want to admit that secretly they're kind of like that. They've got their childish moments and their selfish moments, just like we do. But we're a lot alike, actually. And so this has been the interchange I've had with this being, is to learn that one of the things is we deeply move them. We are connected. We really are family. And one of the things they told me is that I would be bringing together the family. And I thought that was very interesting. I didn't know what the heck that meant. But as I view it now, I'm the admin for the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters, and that's exactly what's going on. I'm having a wonderful time bringing together experiencers of all stripes to get together, share what we have experienced, kind of come out of the closet and not let the professional, whatever, ufologists and stuff define who we are, whether we're credible or not, because they're never going to give us that credibility thing because so much of this is hidden. So weirdly enough, that prediction was true, is that I'm finding my family all over the planet, and they don't have to be connected to the Anunnaki. It's just people who've had experiences to let them know there's a wider universe out there. So that's kind of the thing that I'm doing now, and I'm super excited to talk about what I learned from ar-bordon and to talk with you guys today. It's awesome. Thank you.
Hey, Karen.
Great.
Your story just blows my mind. But could you tell people, I'm sure most people that are listening know who Edgar Mitchell is, but could you just give a synopsis on who he is and why it's so important that him and other people like him are now coming forward to share their truths, and they're truly in the position to know?
Well, this is a huge development. Dr. Edgar Mitchell, I work with Ray Hernandez, who's the founder of the Free Organization. Dr. Edgar Mitchell really asked Ray to come up with a group like this because it was so needful. And, of course, he's an astronaut. He was the sixth man to walk on the moon. And he founded the Noetic Science Institute. But he's an experiencer. At least he'll say, first of all, he believes there is ET. I don't know how much he said out there, but the profound experience that he had that really made him go in this direction was that experience he had looking at our whole planet from out of the atmosphere and just looking at this beautiful blue planet that we have and how there's no lines, drawn on the continents of where the countries are. And he had a samadhi experience, and he then put his name, like in about 2.5 weeks ago, almost 3 weeks ago, put his name on this group to really stress how important it is for us to, the two sort of parts of the organization is to do a huge, massive survey and study of the phenomenon. We have some wonderful people attached to that side of the box. And then also to gather together experiencers to begin to share their stories. There will be an experiencers movement. It's going to come on like gangbusters because people are really tired of waiting for some kind of formal disclosure, or they get very tired. It's been, over 60 years since Roswell. And people have had experiences, and now they connect with each other and discover maybe not the exact same story, but there's an acceptance, there's a reflection, and we're at least talking to each other. And it really is about us sitting at the table and talking as family, as the human family, about what's going on. All the expertise in the world isn't going to really touch us exactly like if we have a personal experience with things that we don't understand, and that quest to understand it is enlightening. And so I'm really excited to be a part of that, and I'm really excited Dr. Mitchell put his name with it so that we could, continue his legacy of what he's been trying to communicate to us being a spaceman.
That's awesome.
How about we'll kind of go round table. That's good. You asked Karen a question. Now, Karen, it's your turn to ask somebody of your choice a question, and we'll just keep going around. We'll pass the ball back and forth.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Dr. Lessin how you heard of ar-bordon. How did you too, Janet? And Dr. Lessin, how did you get to know about him and his work?
Well, I'm sure I remember. My whole orientation is which I got now from an extraterrestrial from my father, is to bring peace on Earth. And I am attracted to the dawning of the age of Aquarius, and I'm a scholar, so I've studied C. Wright Mills, the power elite. I wanted to know who is controlling the Illuminati. I studied many years with Zecharia Sitchin. I got an idea that it was partly the Anunnaki. And after much careful research, I am convinced that Michael is indeed the human representative or emanation of Enki, and it's time for peace on Earth and the dawning of the age of Aquarius, and we're in it.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
And I'll elaborate a little bit on that. About the issue of the incarnation of Enki, I recently have been getting contacted by a number of different Enkis, MARDUK'S, no Enlils, some thoughts or Nigashitas, some Jesuses, and I'm trying to figure that out. I think there really is something going on there. What I tracked it down to was Ningashita Thought in the Emerald Tablets of Thought said that he started working with the Galzu, that they taught him how to, travel the cosmos without, dying and losing his body. And also he discovered he could put his body in stasis and send it down as an avatar, much like the movie Avatar, the blue beings, and come through the birth canal, be born, and walk through the earth in a human life. From the information from Dr. Michael Newton's Institute and his research on life between lives, he gave us that we are able to be simultaneously in more than one place. The more advanced a soul is, the more simultaneous locations he or she may place their, an essence or thread of their soul or spirit into physical 3D form or even other dimensional form. So my conclusion is that Enki and Nimma and others are sending their spirit, their thread of consciousness, and activating. In fact, in one shamanic journey, I was told that there's 10,000 threads in the hopes that even one will wake up. And I know Michael Tellinger carries that energy, and definitely you, Michael Lee Hill, you have the most I've seen, besides Dr. Lessin. And my beloved is so shy he won't ever own it. That's okay. I don't think you need to own it or say it, or because there is that tendency that if you're, standing above the crowd too much, they'll hammer you down. So, it's okay. We can just honor this energy. But this past 2 weeks, I've been contacted by two different Enkis, and they got mad at me because they said, why is Dr. Lessin writing this website, enkispeaks.com? Now, to me and how I got into the work, I'm an experiencer. I've had contact since the crib. In 1996, I was taken before it was kind of like an eyes wide shut type thing, but it was all beautiful gowns and, costumes. It was on the island of Johnston Atoll in the underground facility, and there were 1,000 Anunnaki there, and they were working alongside humans, and there were 3 different species of grays, or, variation on the gray theme. So I've had this continuous ongoing contact, and I identify with, because there, once again, I'm self-censoring, with the essence of Nimma, and Nimma is the mother of humanity. And like Michael Lee Hill says, Michael, you say, you try to kind of skirt around it. How do we express this energy that's coming forth through us. Some people call it channeling or this and that. I'm not really channeling. I identify with it and I emanate it. And I like Jean Houston. She says, get your guiding myth. So I have my guiding myth, which is the story of Nima in Harsog. And now I've embraced that, and I'm doing my best to emanate that and be that essence, which is this kind, loving spirit, this soul who said after Noah's flood, I promise the humans, the Lulus, that I will never, ever, ever let them perish again in such a fashion ever again. And, of course, that was taken and given to God. God was given credit for it, which could be Enlil or Enki. They were getting credit for it, but it was actually Goddess, it was Mother who said that. Okay, so I have a question for you, Michael. Does anybody want to do feedback on any of these questions before we go to another question?
Oh yeah, I wanted to say something that Borton has written, that many of the advanced civilizations, even those in touch with near Earth, have the ability to stop the catastrophic events caused by crap that comes in from the as we move through space, and also to adapt to sudden ice ages, and that these are totally within the means of some of the civilizations that are looking at Earth, but they're not going to do it for us. I just wanted to add that.
Let me add, I think both of you are incarnations of something higher. I'm talking about Janet and Sasha and, of course, Karen, because of the work you're doing. It's like I think you have shown who you are by, you're doing such good for this planet by giving people like Karen and I a platform to tell our stories, because the elite does not want it, and I've learned that firsthand. So thank you, and you all feel like home to me.
Our pleasure.
I want to add to that. I appreciate that too, because it's like we get my partner Brett Collins Shepard and I get so much material. It's constantly coming in. We're actually trying to figure out what to put out. And we are under constant flack as well. We have computer issues or other kinds of issues at least once a week. I just put another operating system on my computer this week. And also when I try to call or do any kind of program, it's really, I feel like it's swimming through molasses. And there's a lot of resistance. And I'm looking forward to the day when there isn't that. It'll be an amazing time. So when someone kind of reaches out to us, it's such a blessing, because we're kind of in our own corner of the world learning so much and want to get it out there. When somebody says, hey, that's interesting, we want to hear about it, that is a real encouragement, because there's times that we sit and we think, why are we doing this? The world doesn't seem to want to know. We're putting the information out in all kinds of formats, hoping that when this awakening times comes, people will be really, really hungry, and they'll just do like I did. In my awakening, I looked up everything I possibly could, every corner I could find, including finding ar-bordon, to learn, and learn not just what's same old stuff. We were talking about how, like ufology stuck in 10 cases, like Rendlesham Forest and the Roswell and the different ones, and that's the same stories, and they're epic stories and good. But I realized a while back that these stories aren't cutting it to advance people along the route to really understand some deep things. It's like repeating a nursery rhyme over and over, our favorite kid story over and over. It sounds great, and yeah, I know about that, but what I'm looking for is transformational information. What will actually push us down the road of the transition, and this is what my guides really talk to me about, is the transition from hierarchy thinking to balanced holarchy thinking, from top down to bottom up or inside out, from the pyramidic structure to the Merkaba structure of how we think. And so what I kind of look for, that's what I'm looking for. What kind of material or what kind of ideas are transformational and really, there's so much material out there. How can people weed through it and know that it's the right thing? And interesting about so many different sources is you've really got to take the information for itself. because sometimes the sources are very embattled, and I think ar-bordon was an embattled person. But what he said and the information that he gave, and also the way he kind of was a cross-pollinating bee kind of person to get all of us connected, and I'm so grateful for the friendships and the connections. So this is my interest, is what gets us transformed individually, and then that will in turn transform the planet.
I hope, yes. Well,
it's awesome.
So let's perhaps go a little bit more into ar-bordon, who he is and what he did and the effect he left, and he died in 2013. So Sasha and I did not meet AR. We found his information. I think I found it through your interview, which was on the other radio network you have. It was on the YouTube. And then I contacted you, Michael, and I said, we need to talk about this. And then you sent me some information, and then I've been really attracted to this information because I think this is the cutting-edge information. And, yes, I go to a lot of the conferences, and I hang out with people, and they say the same stories over and over, like you said, like a repeating a nursery tale. But this is it. I think AR has the key. So, Michael, you want to tell us a little bit about your experience with AR, and then Karen.
Yeah, because actually I would love to read 2 short paragraphs from the first letter ar-bordon ever wrote me, and I think this is going to answer your question when you have people coming to you saying that they're Marduk or Enki or whatever, of Anunnaki heritage. I would ask you, well, play me some music, you know, and this is why it gets into you, Karen, toning and just instinctively knowing the benefit of sending vibrations and frequency, and I'm sure you're hitting the right ones. It's Tibetan monks, just by their own intuition, create the chakra singing bowls. They're tuned to 432. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. But let me share this because this tells a lot about, and it covers, I think, a good bit of information that, Karen, you said you're looking for information that is transforming, you know, for consciousness.
Yes.
So check this out. This is from ar-bordon. This is an interesting exercise for us because we distinctly get it, that it has to do with what your friends who are not from here want you to learn and evolve into. You see right now, they see and sense your good heart and open, connected intention and life-giving ways. You have music in you as well, but not in the sense of just playing the guitar or composing songs. You see, to create matter, you need music, or more specifically, sounds. Not just any one sound, but specific sound frequencies in combination. You'll also learn about this in the course of your concentration, and you'll learn how to use them to light encode objects out of thin air. He's talking about a subject called LERM. That's a whole other subject, light encoded reality matrix, and it's truly bringing down a physical object from light. But anyhow, it says, yes, what we spoke of before, as you said in your biography, synchronicity. And the synchronicities do not end there. With you comes to all of us new roads, avenues, and doors that you have already opened for yourself. You have already crossed these doors. When these new doors you've already crossed become aware of your bootstrapping new self, new interests will arise in what you, as part of all of us, bring to the world. In that sense, the mission you set for yourself comes to pass. And with you as a part of a far larger thing, this also translates into the entertainment and education aspects of this whole thing. What we are doing means. And the act you will learn to do and produce, which will speak a billion words, this will definitely get attention, and it's incontrovertible. You cannot argue with it. And the kind of music you may come to know and write and produce will be nothing like what exists today, because you will learn to use the true Pythagorean scale from which creation itself comes. Think also of the value of getting to know your flying friends by pressing the flesh, as it were. Don't discount it. I'll stop right there because that's what I was talking about. First of all, true Pythagorean tuning has to do with, pretty much it's really simple. The A note being tuned to 432 instead of 440. Right now, our musical standard worldwide for all symphonies and everything you go to, it's 440 hertz. And, I've been thinking about this recently because I take these things at granted. I'm like, well, maybe a lot of people don't even know what a hertz is, So let me explain real quick. It's just one oscillation of a waveform. Like all sound is a wave. And that wave is, the scientific term is hertz. So really if it's 5 hertz, it would be 5 up and down oscillations of that waveform. And you can actually see it scientifically. It's called an oscilloscope. And really, like a lot of engineers and stuff will know what I'm talking about. But, so what you need to understand, first of all, is the human hearing. We can hear from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. And obviously there's a lot of information above and below it, but that is human hearing. So 432, and by the way, in the past, this was known. A lot of Eastern cultures, they had someone that was part of their hierarchy. That was their job, to go out and make sure people had their instruments tuned properly. Because if not, you're swamping everyone with non-harmonious frequencies, and they knew it. It causes panic states, fight and flight. And so, I don't know how to tell the world we need a new musical standard, but I'm starting it anyhow. I've just renamed my band, by the way. It's Michael Lee Hill and the Cosmic 432.
Oh, good. Well, isn't that a part of the control mechanism to keep our vibrational frequency at a certain hertz level, and perhaps that's why they changed music to that level? And that I heard it wasn't really that. Who was the one that changed it to the current standard, which is not the correct one?
It was one of the Nazi scientists we brought here. Project Paper. He ended here with Project Paperclip, but it was a Nazi scientist, and it was in the 1940s. It wasn't that long ago. So now think about. No. Yeah, it was definitely in the 40s.
Do we have any music that's recorded before that time that we're able to listen to and probably understand the difference? Like from the 20s and 30s?
Yeah, actually I heard some symphonies have tuned in, and I'm starting to understand a whole other level of this, which we can get into. But, I asked Chief Golden Light Eagle, and he's the organizer of the Star Knowledge Conference. And by the way, Karen, you said you had Native American Indian heritage as well. I think that's what's missing right now. I'm telling you, they have the answers. They are the Nephilim intertwined into the Native American Indians, and that fact is being released right now as we speak. We should have an experiencers Star Knowledge Conference.
That'd be awesome.
I think it'll happen. But I asked Chief Golden Light Eagle. What's that?
Just interject it. Aren't the Native Americans perhaps Marduk's, which is the Yankee clan? Marduk came over to the Americas first when he was rescued after he was imprisoned in the pyramid, right? Is that what happened? He went over to.
I can tell you exactly.
Marduk's
bloodline runs through the Erie Montauk, or they're called Montaukette, which they've been written out of our history books, but they're still here.
Mm-hmm.
That is Marduk's bloodline on this planet. Inky's bloodline runs through the Seneca, but they're all throughout the Native American Indian tribes now because the intermingling has been going on for a very long time. And this is all provable. It's not just my opinion. There's a DNA lineage. Scientists know, they call it haplogroups, and they can search back now and see exactly where your DNA is from. And haplogroup X was found in 1997, so it's not that long ago. And the only place that this DNA exists is the remains, often giant, removed from the earth mounds, ancient Israel, and 3% of the Native American Indian tribes still to this day have the exact same bloodline. But first of all, we're not giants anymore. We're not Anunnaki mini-me's. I love that. But it's on purpose, you see, because really, scientifically, the further back in time you go into these remains, the taller the stature. So I think we're getting into why abductions are possibly even happening, even though it's not fun for anyone that experiences it. Their genetic work is not done. For the Nephilim to do what they were intended to do here, they needed to be able to not stick out like a sore thumb,
Right.
Michael, can I ask you if you know whether was Kokopele Thoth or Marduk? Who was Kokopele?
I have no clue.
Oh, okay.
You don't know?
No, I'm not even
seems to be
familiar
the person that was bringing advanced culture everywhere he went. Among the Indians.
I heard it was Ningashita. That was Ningashita.
It makes sense. It sounds like
what?
Ningashita.
He's probably, I can tell you that within the Iroquois is not a single tribe of Indians. It's actually 5 tribes of Indians. And these 5 tribes were at war with one another for hundreds upon hundreds of years. And it got so bad that the Seneca were considered to be the warrior priests of the Iroquois. And one of the warriors just got fed up with all the BS because he had lost 4 of his 5 children and his wife to these ongoing wars. So he said, I've had enough. And he went out, and this was unheard of because you got to remember, in their own ways of looking at life, like if you killed my brother, I had to kill your brother. It was a spiritual thing. And so they kept these rivalries going for a very long time. And so this one warrior is just sick and tired of all this. He's lost most of his family, so he tries to go and unite these other 4 tribes against this dark sorcerer who led the 5th tribe, and they're the ones, like, that was where all the problems were coming from. So lo and behold, he does unite them, and they all grab their arrows, and they go to attack this evil sorcerer, and they get their asses handed to them. They get arrows manifesting out of nowhere, and what they didn't know is, as sad as it is, when the warriors left their women and children back at the villages, that's when the European settlers would go in and slaughter their families. Right. So when they returned, it broke their will. And so not only did they get their asses handed to them by uniting and trying to take out this evil sorcerer, when they got back to their villages, all their families were slain. And this drove this warrior insane with grief, and he went on a walkabout kind of through the woods and just left everything. Well, why I'm telling you this is here comes a character called the Peacemaker, and he was from the Canada side of Lake Erie, and his tribe already, from birth, they considered him a holy man, and he was raised as such, kind of like a Dalai Lama of the Indian tribes. But when he was in his late adulthood, I do believe, he got the notion that his brothers across the lake needed him direly. So he got in his magical white canoe and crossed Lake Erie, and right when he reached the shores of Lake Erie on the North American continent side, what's become the United States, when he reached the shore, just out of synchronicity, guess who he met at the shore? It was this warrior who had lost his family. And this Peacemaker has a way of removing his grief and showing him that he's still loved and everything will be fine, and gives him a way that these wars don't have to be going on. But so the warrior's like, well, there's no way that these other 4 tribes are going to unite now. We tried, but if you want to try, I will. Since you've healed my heart, I will follow you. So this warrior and the Peacemaker now go to all 4 tribes, and they were tested. This Peacemaker was tested by every tribe to validate if he was truly a messenger and a holy person. And he passed all the tests. So what happened was the 4 tribes then united, but this time they went to this evil sorcerer, not with swords and, arrows in their hands. They went with the olive branch. And the Peacemaker told this evil sorcerer that, listen, we are going to win this, but we want you to join us and become part of this. and we recognize that you do have some good qualities, but this is not working, and you got to step down. Well, because they went with the olive branch, this evil sorcerer had no, what would you call it? He got on his knees, and they took the snakes from his hair, they said, and from that point forward, he worked for the light. And that united the Iroquois Indian tribe, and they've been united now. Actually, it's a fact that they have the oldest democracy in the world.
Yeah.
And we can get into that later because it's very important. But you see how we're talking about this Indian character, it fits perfectly with the peacemaker. And a magical white canoe, stone white canoe.
Right. So these are probably stories about the factions that are rolling the earth to this day. So we have the Anunnaki factions, and I've been working to identify them. So Sasha, you can help me with this as well. So we have the Enlilites and the Enkyites, and for Enlil, now apparently it's Nannar. That's one of his. Is that one of his children or grandchildren? That's one of his children, right? And then we have Marduk.
Second son, his legitimate son.
Middle son.
Ninurta is the oldest.
Yeah. Ninurta is the oldest. So Ninurta is no longer in the league position to be king of Nibiru, king of the earth.
He's Secretary of Defense for Nibiru.
Right, and we have Enki's son Marduk, who is he still in control? Has he stepped down? Now another faction was Inanna, and Inanna is the Bohemian Grove owl, and her brother Utu Shamash is the Statue of Liberty. It's not a woman, it's a man. If you look at Utu Shamash, he's got the crown, it's his symbol. And then there was another faction. And,
Utu and Inanna work for their dad, Nannar, who's king of Nibiru now.
Okay, that's right. And where's Enki in all this? Okay, so let's see what do you guys know about the factions, and how does that correlate with what ar-bordon is saying? And Karen, let's go to you because we haven't heard your voice in a little while.
Oh, yeah. No, I was just really taken with Michael's story because I got some of the information from being descendant from Cherokee on my dad's side and Algonquin on my mother's side. And that's no small thing because there's a whole history of North America that we don't know. If you're descended from, if you're not a affiliated tribe, and you got some of those stories from your grandparents, your ancestors, your elders. In the case of, and this is something that'll be interesting as it unfolds, is that we really, well, one of my guides, one of my ET guides says there's the history, okay, and the history is the actual history, unmarked, untouched, on whatever it is, and then there's the history where we're told, or the history that we're told is has to do with what country you're in, what tribe you're in, who was your king, what wars did you win, and what religion you are. And so all of those factors are playing into kind of how these factions work. They work through the political process. They work through the religion. Religion's a huge part of how this stuff works. And I'm going to talk about that for a minute, because religion, as I now understand it, is actually really, really old. It's older than the planet. It goes back, as I was told by my very tall ancestor, back to the Orion Empire. How would you run an entire empire? Well, you got to do it by having managing beings' belief systems, and it's belief system technology. So it's a thought form technology. So we understand, as far as we've gotten in technology, we know that an idea can be an algorithm which can run your computer. We use math. Math is like if you're going to divide something in your head. That's thought form technology. Well, the thought form technology basic function is to create us to be oriented toward hierarchy mindedness, meaning we're a pecking order. We're aware of the pecking order. And so everything, what they're trying to do is get us into teams, where we look at our leadership, our country, our religion or whatever, and that's our team that we're going with, and that's how our belief system is managed. So I don't know exactly how all the factions break up, but I do know that there's different parts of what a belief system does. And one of the parts of it is it has you looking outside yourself for validation. That's a really important one. Because as I'm learning now in my belief system is that I am an expression of the divine source by myself. I don't need the rest of it to be at least one expression, one idea of source. If I go and put anything between myself and that, and it's not like I'm God of everybody or anything. It's just I'm an expression, and if I put anything in between me and that expression, then it creates a situation where another being or another idea, I'm going to look to that to validate me. And then that's going to be a problem because I'm going to go with that team or that idea or whatever. And then another, there's these different ideas that we believe. Another one is adversary creation. What a hierarchy system does is it creates an adversary. So there's a constant pitting us against each other. And, of course, I worked with the Occupy movement, and it was very interesting when we got to the idea we are the 99%. I thought that was fascinating because now it's not like, well, I'm having economic troubles because of those people over there are getting more than me. It completely erased that. And it said that there was an oligarchy, a 1%, kind of managing everything, and we are united together with concern about the imbalance, the 1% imbalance. And I thought that was a really neat idea. So adversary creation is a part of it. And that's kind of foolish because now you're going to have competition for things, which is going to create war, and that's going to be destructive, and it's going to create scarcity, and it's going to create competition. And the thing that happens is there's societies far older than us, and one of the reasons why they want us to connect outside this milieu of ET contact is we might actually get in contact personally, some telepaths will actually get in contact with a more mature galactic society, and they're going to find out that they don't run on scarcity. They think scarcity is kind of foolish, and they actually think our monetary system is really quaint. It's kind of cute, kind of quaint, like old-fashioned, because they've learned how to do things differently. And so, I think it comes from the first idea of scarcity, as I understand it. The first idea of scarcity is that that Nibiru didn't have enough atmosphere. There was their first scarcity. Right. So then they needed gold, and they needed enough. They didn't have enough of that. So they began to set about making that their scarcity and the thing that they desired for the purposes of, I believe they said, the atmosphere thing, but also the fact that they imbibe it, as Michael can attest to, that they imbibe it into their bodies or made gold into their bodies, just like cocaine or something like that. So that created another scarcity. And then, this scarcity creation creates this hierarchy, creates this power and control system so they can manipulate things however they want. And if that's not enough, they got to fight about it. And there's fights also between them. From I believe I asked you, Dr. Lessin, what an ME was, because I thought that was terribly interesting, where the Inanna, I think, was trying to get some MEs, which are discs that had all the, like everything about animal husbandry or everything about winemaking or how to build the city, and they actually didn't have enough of those, apparently. So they were fighting amongst themselves, and I thought that was interesting because the side effect of that is none of the cities had everything it needed, so that caused them to have to trade with one another to go get the wine over there in that land, to get the cattle over in that land. So it's kind of like that's an interesting side effect of the story is the idea that there's not enough. And so there's other principles that lead into this. But if you want to talk about that Dr. Lessin, I always like that story.
The MEs are dedicated computing devices that only a certain person can use. And so when Inanna was, being held back because she was a woman, it was, and her father was Nannar, the first legitimate son of Enlil or Yahweh, and she first of all, she became Anu, who was then king, his consort, and he gave her the temple where they had made love in Uruk, and she wanted that to be a full-on city, and she kept on pushing for more and more authority, and finally Anu said, well, look, we'll develop the Indus Valley for you. And so she had all these places, but she couldn't really do anything. Enki had control. He evidently was he's the master nowadays of the quantum computer they have on Nibiru. And anyway, she got him drunk, and it wasn't just that she was trying to get the MEs, because he was a tantric master, and they had a lot of fun. And every time she would do some other wonderful sexual thing, he'd give her another ME. And he got really stoned and kept getting more and more MEs. She gave them to her steward, who zipped off with him. Enki sobered up. He tried to get him back and complained to the commander, Enlil, and he said, no, you gave him fair and square. But he didn't give her all the ones she did for the Indus Valley. And later on, when they were trying to keep the humans from the Earthlings, that's us, from uniting against the few Anunnaki, less than 1,000 of them that were there, there was almost war between her people that were in the Indus Valley, modern Pakistan, and Sumer, but they managed to get by. It's a long story. Inanna was a very, very tempestuous person, but when she got the tiara for queen of everything, it's her turn. She wanted to overthrow her dad and her granddad, and I'm the greatest muck ever. That's the story you want to hear.
Well, I have to tell you what ar-bordon said about those MEs. You can actually look these up, like what they are, on Wikipedia.
Really?
It's interesting. That information is out there, yeah, last I checked. But anyway, one of the things Dr. Borden told me, that these MEs were like round, like discs, kind of things, like our DVD kind of discs, and that they wore them on a necklace, like a ceremonial necklace, on some, so you can see some of the ancient theories. Now, don't quote me on this. This is what he said. And then I thought about that, and what we see as reflections of our society are reflected in that former society. And I just what kind of twirled around in my head is, if you ever seen in Europe some of these fancy necklaces that are worn by the Lord Mayor of London, and different ones have kind of these round circlet kind of things and all these jewels. And I always think that our kingships, or our dukes and earls and royal systems, imitate these former kingdoms, and some of the emblems, like the tall hats. Of course, there's some conjecture that the Anunnaki might have had taller heads than us, and so we see the tall hats. The guy with the tallest hat in the room in any royal situation is the king, back in the day. And also these circular necklaces, and there's just all kinds of symbology that we inherited in our display and
Rolexes.
all that. Yeah.
Rolexes are too.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. In other words, we're kind of constantly imitating them. Yeah, we're kind of constantly imitating them in our fashion and our dress, in jewelry, in our pageantry. Like the Pope wears that big fish hat. In our pageantry.
Right.
And the pageantry thing was really important to me as I've gone along with this too, because of the fact that pageantry becomes theatrics, and I've told this before, and I hope people get what I'm saying. My guides break words down for me, and one of them was theatrics becomes theo-tricks, the tricks of the gods. And what were the tricks of the gods? And one of them was pageantry, because when you have a mass of people, and they all concentrate on the stage, and they concentrate on some potentate or important person or MC. If you've ever been a performer, that energy, you can feel that energy. I've done acting and music myself, and that energy comes to you. And then the other thing is, now all of those people are also invested in the legitimacy of the thing that they're paying attention to. And that literally energetically creates relevancy. It creates something in the understructure of our thinking in our morphogenetic field that makes us think that that's important. So that's an important thing, because then you see in all of our society where we have pageantry. We're starting that election cycle to elect the next president. So now you'll see the flag. You're going to see the, smiling people and ticker tape and kissing babies and all that stuff, and wearing a suit. And all these things put attention on something, and that makes it so. It creates relevancy for the hierarchy. And this has been very interesting to me as a study by itself, is that we give a little bit of our attention energy. All the masses will watch that religious program or that political thing or that theatrical thing for an hour. And that 1 hour that we pay attention to that thing, we actually help to make that thing legitimate to us and legitimate to the world. And I think that is one of the legacies of our ancestors, is to create a system of beliefs based on this pageantry idea. And I just think that's very interesting.
Well, that resonates with me, because when I had that experience with 1,000 Anunnaki, it was a lot of pageantry. Everybody, I was taken out of my bed. I was in my, I wear a nightshirt, and they just, I was taken to an area where the stress was there, ready for me. It fit me exactly. Everybody was dressed to the nines, and it was pageantry, just what you're saying. Michael, we haven't heard from you for a while. What would you like to interject?
You know what? I think I got to go with the flow here, because, what Karen was saying, I think I got a piece of this puzzle, and it comes through. I'm sure most of you know who David Sarita is.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
He produced and directed Case for NASA UFOs and the Dan Aykroyd UFOs Unplugged. Well, he and I partnered, and what I want to tell you is these necklaces, these round necklaces, he was inspired, and he says it was the Anunnaki. And he calls them galactic pendants. And what it is it's a stone that he's infused. He's invented a machine that envelops different stones with frequency. And the outer wrapping is very specific. And it actually looks exactly like the black sun, the Vril symbol, if you know what I'm talking about.
Ooh.
You can go to the reason I'm telling you this is I own one of these, and it really pisses me off when people say the Anunnaki wore wristwatches, because it's not what it is. What these things do, and I own one, so I can tell you exactly, they are subtle energy, like balancers and enhancers. And the way it's actually scientifically proven. With me, you can take a what's it called, like a voltmeter, hold the positive probe in one hand, the negative probe in the other hand, and you can see how much electricity your body is holding. For me, it was about a half a volt. Now, you take those exact two probes, don't change anything, and put those probes on this necklace with your thumb over the probe. So your thumb is pushing the probe onto the necklace on the left side, and then the other, say if the left hand is the negative probe, then with the right hand you take the probe and you put it onto the necklace. And I should just do this with a camera so people can see it in real time. It's 1.6 volts for my
Wow.
thumb.
Almost
so
double.
it's a free energy device. Where is the 1.1 volts coming from? There's no wires coming to it. And I can tell a huge difference, but I'll tell you what's really strange is I've learned recently I got to be very careful. If you flip that necklace, if you wear it the wrong way, by the end of the day you will feel like you need to lay down and take a nap. It's happened to me, and I find out, oh man, I got my necklace on wrong. But
oh wow.
And it's kind of strange when you talk about MEs, and this is what they were, and they wore around their necks, and they're these discs. You know what? Maybe that is all this unfolding of, like AR said, to create matter, you need certain frequencies. Well, that's exactly what I've been guided to, that they've been guiding us into what frequencies for a very long time, even encoded into the actual layout of these mound sites, which is mind-blowing to me. So I just wanted to share that about these devices, and now you can tell everyone they are not wristwatches. They're MEs.
They're MEs. So there, a lot of the statues, they show something on the wrist. So they're not only wearing something around their necks, but they could have them on their wrists.
No, I told David. I said
one of them was there. Some of them are other objects like a tiara and a wand, and it wasn't only in that particular form, but Inanna's talking about several different objects that are where they say have crystalline interiors, or the crystals line the interior of the Great Pyramid. But that's a way I think that people wrote about computers. What do you think our computers are? They're crystals too.
Indeed.
Well, I'm looking at this carving on your website, Michael, on your prop circle page. And it has an Anunnaki, has his wings. He's carrying the little bucket or the purse. On both of his wrists, he's got something round, and he's trying to put a little pine cone type device. I mean, he's got it in his hand like he's going to insert it somewhere. Has anybody ever figured out what are they doing with these things?
It's showing how they communicate. The pine cone represents the pineal gland, the third eye, and that is how humanity is. The Anunnaki work at the level of thought within the human vessel. It's through humor, wit, and creativity. So it's actually showing. And by the way, them wearing them on the wrist, I'm telling David, not only should you be making necklaces, but make it into a bracelet as well. I wonder what it would feel like to wear a couple, I only have a necklace. But anyhow, I'm sorry, what was the question?
Go ahead. In Egypt, they also had, the pharaohs had rods that they would hold in either one of their hands. And that was done by the pharaoh or done by, the leader. And so there's different devices, and they always show his hands straight down. They'll show the pharaoh and his hands straight down, like Ramses or something like that. From what I understand, that was 2 rods that they would hold, one in each hand. So something's going on that's a technology, a subtle energy that we are, hopefully are rediscovering, or is given back to us to begin to understand. It's mankind's turn to learn all of that again, because most of what we have for technology now is a remembrance of older technology. It's not something brand new under the sun at all. It's a remembrance of old technology, and all the crop circles and many messages from many experiencers are being told is that to remember what used to be. We're now coming to a point where we possibly could be, they say we can't handle the truth. Well, we couldn't we handle free energy? I can handle some free energy. I don't know about you guys. My dad was a power plant guy, and he traveled all over the United States working at different power plants. And he was always talking about how non-efficient almost by design, how non-efficient our systems are, and how important it would be, and we could get much higher efficiency. But he also believed in very local power. We have the giant grid, running wires everywhere. A lot of power bleeds off that. And so he was making me aware. He says, this is not meant for efficient power usage. This is meant for control. That's what he believed the grid was for control.
Wow.
Because when he started, that people had boilers in their building or something like that. They had hyper-local power systems, and then they put it on this big grid. And now, instead of you have a storm and the whole town runs out of power, or the lines get cut, back then it would be just a few buildings. It would be like a couple of buildings, and the other ones would be running, and people could, come over and stay over there for heat or whatever. But, we've actually gotten more primitive because we've got this grid-controlled structure of power when we could be having free energy, hyper-local energy, which gets us off the grid. Man, that's been a huge topic I talked about a lot last year. And with my cousin and I were on a radio show talking about permaculture, and we have the choice. We have the choice of awareness, starting with our minds to understand we don't need to be in a grid control power system. We can be independent. And then we just start to think of ways to do that on a personal scale. Instead of waiting around for somebody to invent something, we can at least start our own, the power of the mind is the first and the most important power, right? And imagination is the first and most important. And I hate that when you're an experiencer and you've had some kind of odd, experience, and people go, well, that's just your imagination. Oh my gosh, I want to slap them, because just your imagination is everything, right? Everything we have is because it entered somebody's mind first as an idea. And so our imaginations are really important, and our imaginations open us up to the morphogenetic field, which is all of our ancestors learning, all of it they're trying to give us. We think we're so smart. We're smarter than our ancestors. They were just primitive people. They were not just primitive people. We're kind of primitive because of how scarcity-minded we are and how helpless we are. My goodness, we're in a second depression and nobody knows what to do. Back in the day, my grandmother's time, they started planting gardens and having some, individual effort to get through it. And now people don't even know how to grow a garden. So we're talking about them being primitive. What about us? We don't even know how to live on our own planet with the natural agriculture that we have.
Right on, right on.
It might be a rude awakening, huh?
And also God. Well, we have other. Yeah, I forget everything I was going to say. I'm sorry, I got lost. That was great though. Who has a question? Oh, well, AR was saying about our real capabilities that are way beyond what we think it is, and that's because we are manifestors, and we've been taught and programmed out of our own reality that we're major manifestors. I'm a manifestor. I'm here. I'm alive because I manifested things. I had to go into like a fight or flight, live or die situation, which was kind of stupid when I look at it. But despite all that, I've been training myself how to manifest, and so we can all do this, and that's what they're afraid of, is our ability. Oh, imagination. That was the thing I was trying to address. My friend was on with the military, and she and her husband were on this craft outside of Mars. It's a whole alternative space program, and they were defending against other species that are coming in that are hostile, and they were in a group effort with a lot of species that are friendly aliens. Even the friendly aliens, they admire humanity because we have the ability to imagination. And that's how you can do this manifestation process that ar-bordon talks about. What is it called? LERM, right? Is that thoughts or deeds. You can envision something, imagine it, image it, and then you pull it into 3D physicality. So that's why they are really attracted to humanity, because for some reason in our primitive state and our negativity, we are able to do things that they can't do. We can imagine and manifest.
Yeah, Borden says that's why they really like to kidnap our kids, because they have this ability before they've been socialized and pounded into the matrix, that they have abilities even beyond a lot of the extraterrestrial species abilities, and that's why they really keep kidnapping our kids, or the kids come voluntarily.
Yeah, I'll talk about that for a minute, because another person, if somebody wants to kind of get into this too, to pay attention to, is Dan Winter, because Dan Winter has some tangential information, and if you kind of read through all of his stuff, you get to the part where apparently through Inky's mother is injected a little bit of DNA from the founder beings. So 11th dimensional or density beings is kind of a little thread of that is in humanity. And what he talked about in some of his writings was the star children have the star navigator gene. And a star navigator is a being who can use that imagination to decide where they're going to be, and they go be there. And so that's an awful handy thing to have. It's apparently not something that really pops up everywhere in the galaxy, so they're partially looking for that. They know that there's going to be children born to the human family. They're going to have this ability. And that is part of the reason why that happens. And there's several factors to star navigation. And the idea here is that there are portals, there are gates, there's portals and corridors. The sun is a star gate. And one of these beings can actually make their own Merkaba or own energy ships of themselves. And I know Michael and I have talked about this because of the UFOs that he sees over Lake Erie. But basically, it's a being that this has been given to me in dreams and visions. So I'll explain it to you this way. is that this is a being, a child or a young person who can touch, without all these devices and everything we've just talked about, can touch a person or a thing and make that thing coded to the center of their Merkaba, and then all of that be up in the air and gone. So it's kind of a situation where, you remember when Superman picked up Lois Lane and flew over the city? It's kind of that kind of thing. Is that person or that thing or that person that they're carrying or holding would become not exactly weightless. It would just simply have its own center of gravity. And so this is something that it's interesting that science fiction and comic book stuff and fantasy stuff and is giving us stories of things that we're saying are imaginative or fanciful, but are actually aspects of who we have been in the past, who we're likely to be in the future, the human capacity. So we're all X-Men at some level. We just don't know that we are, right? And that's the dilemma of every superhero. They don't know who they are. And so that's kind of our story, too, is that we don't know in the human genome what we're capable of doing, because it's like that little baby elephant, you put a giant chain on him and you chain him to the ground, and then when he's a big giant elephant, he still thinks that even though he could just easily pull that stake right out of the ground, he doesn't because of what's happened to his mind. That's what's happened to humanity. And this is one of the things that we were all talking about in our groups, is to kind of rekindle and try to remember. So much of our discussions with all of us that were connected to ar-bordon is these dreams, visions, and remembrances of being in a different capacity than we are trained to be now. And so that's one of the things is us reaching in and finding our capacity again. And this sacred geometry and the Merkaba and the uniting of the balance of the divine feminine and the divine masculine is very key to all of this. And I have to say, Michael and I have the distinction. I saw a Merkaba-shaped UFO in 1979, and I have not talked to anybody who's ever seen one like that. And Michael told me that that's a shape that he saw over on the UFOs that were over on Lake Erie, which is a whole chapter of Michael everybody should know about. It's awesome. But that made me feel good, because over the years after that sighting, trying to understand that Merkaba energy or that toroidal energy or phi spiral, everything Dan Winter's talking about, has been something that has been coming to me. What's it like to live that way? What's it like to be like that? Is a remembrance,
you know what, Karen?
Direction for me. Yeah.
What exactly you're talking about, the person that I've come in contact with, who is an Arcturian messenger, he told me exactly. He said, Michael, do you want to know what these orbs of light that are over Lake Erie are? I said, absolutely. He said, well, you know about the Merkaba. I said, yes. And he said, well, the individual Merkaba field will end about 3 feet above that individual's head and about 3 feet below their feet. And if those energy fields are spun in the right way, it turns into an interdimensional light travel vehicle, right? It rips you out of the space-time continuum, because this actually gets into the work we did, and I want to talk about this with ar-bordon at the end of 2012 as well. So he said, plus, you needed to know, he said, that energy comes in through your big toes. He said, us wearing rubber shoes are really not good, because we get our chi from Mother Earth through our toes, and it leaves and goes through a toroidal energy pattern through our crown chakras, how it leaves, but it comes in through your toes. So he said 3 of these beings that are all have ignited their Merkaba fields come together in a triangular form in each person, which is weird, because this is exactly what we did with the pattern, if you recall, Karen, of the team and how we were set up. It was a Merkaba over top of the United States, and each partner was in a different corner. Well, he said, picture that you have 3 now that are in a pyramid, a triangle form, and they have a basketball size of physical material. And he said, Michael, you know how most physical material is light, that it's slowed down and become physical. He said, so imagine a physical object that is the closest thing possible in the physical 3D realm of turning back into light. It's screaming to become light, is what he said. He said, now picture these 3 people with this object be right in the middle of their triangle that they're sitting meditating, they start willing the energy in their toes out of their crown chakra through this physical ball that's in the middle of them to the other person, and they create infinity loops. And what I'm talking about, by the way, look at my Facebook wall about a post that look in the middle of the guy's hands. That's actually what we're talking about, but that's another story. So he said, so for a human that's one individual that's ignited their Merkaba field, you're going to have about a 10 to 11 foot sphere, right? Like a miniature supernova. But he said when three people come together and they ignite this ball of light into a little miniature supernova in between them, they can take this light and spread it out through this larger sacred geometry grid that the three of them are creating, and now they can create like a 50-foot ball of light. Most of the ones I'm seeing over Lake Erie are of that type. So there's probably three beings in there. And he said, this is his own words, he said, there's not too many humans that could sit in one of those chairs right now, because if you were traveling from here to Andromeda and one of those members freaked out and said, oh my God, we're going too fast, the whole thing would disintegrate and it wouldn't end well for any of them. So the point was, though, he said, it's always 3s, 6s, and 9s, which imagine that, huh? He said, so three of these beings coming together creating one 50-foot Merkaba, three of those can then come together, so it's 9 people, right? You know, 3 people in each ball of 50-foot ball of light, and those 3 people in each one, 9 people, then can create anything. You know, from the UK Ministry of Defense, they released in their own writings, this is exactly what the Arcturian messenger told me, that they create these 9 beings create a huge triangular craft that have been seen worldwide right now, pretty much however big they want to make it. So if you think about what's happening, 9 of them in service to the rest are creating a craft that then thousands of them can walk on and take a trip here to check out what's going on. It's amazing. You know, and Bigelow Ranch said the same thing, where it's different, but they said they've seen these orbs of light taking on biological life forms, like of giant wolves. So here you got Bigelow Aerospace, which is the most, you know, they're the only ones allowed to weaponize space right now. And Karen can, she's pretty much an expert on it and actually has some inside info on the ranch, I know. But here you got them saying these orbs of light can become physical, and that's why the Native American Indians called them skinwalkers, because they would take on skin. But here you got the UK Ministry of Defense saying these orbs of light have been seen becoming technological craft. So we need to wrap our heads around, this is an intelligence that can manifest into our reality as whatever they want and whenever they want.
Well, that correlates with my own personal experience. When I was 4, I was taken on board a mothership, and when I was there, I was no longer my 4-year-old self. I was my eternal self, you know, the part that incarnates over and over again. And they told me that the ship was created for my convenience, for my physical human form self that needed to wrap my head around something. And so that, they were manifesting it. Probably, while you were saying it, I was envisioning they were doing it through the Merkabas combined. Yep. And also, what was his name from Australia? He's one of the Alex Collier type experiencers. He said the same thing on a show I did with him about 2 years ago, that they met on board ships, but the ships were manifested by the participants for the purpose of the meeting. And that's also what Michael Newton Institute says, is that when we're dead, everything is manufactured or just manifested by the participants. So if you like a place that looks Romanesque with a bunch of columns, or that's what you'll manifest for your group meeting. And if you like being out in nature, you'll manifest a meadow. So there's something, resonating with my experiences by what you're saying. I agree.
Yeah, what I want to get into, though, with all this, and it'd be great to get into this with Karen, because the truth of the matter is I'm really excited about what you're doing of giving members of, they're actually very specific members of a team that ar-bordon put together, and from what I understand, the mission was a success. We know that, and looks like, unless it's just a huge coincidence, it cost AR his life. But we never talked about it after the fact of doing this. It's almost like there's an elephant in the room, and we don't really talk about it. I would like to talk about it because I think I have some information, like from AR, that I don't think everyone maybe even knows about what was truly happening. But because Karen, we communicated with the incoming and asked them for help to make a better ending to this timeline for humanity. We had our idea, which would be this is the best we came up with, and what it was a change in trajectory of Nibiru as it came through, because obviously every 3,600 years it's not catastrophic. So what's the difference? The difference is if it comes between Mars and Jupiter, we have a fighting chance because we have a buffer. But if it comes between Mars and Earth, we have no buffer. And all scientific evidence was pointing towards a catastrophic transit through our solar system. So what we did was ask for help and gave our best case solution, which was a change in trajectory. But I can guarantee you the Anunnaki have ways of helping that we can't even surmise. And the intent of asking allows them then to help. And I think how they helped was not a change in trajectory at all. And what it was, if you can, everything has a Merkaba field around it that's alive. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be fruit or an animal or a human or a planet. So if igniting a human's Merkaba field, it becomes an interdimensional travel vehicle, which really means it's ripping you out of the space-time continuum. What happens when you ignite a whole planet's Merkaba field? And what I learned from Bob Dean as well is Nibiru already has a functioning Dyson shell. It said it's pretty well known in some corners that at a certain point of evolution, a race will learn how to put a protective Dyson shell of energy around their planet. It's just kind of part of evolution. But that's what they did with the Philadelphia experiment by making a false Merkaba around that warship to try to make it radar invisible, but it ripped it out of our space-time continuum. If you remember, it manifested back in 1988 and then came back to the 40s with a lot of advanced technology and stuff, but a lot of people were dead as well. Well, in the same way, from everything I know from what was happening, they wanted, by what we were doing, to ignite the Earth's Merkaba field, which would rip it out of the space-time continuum. And ar-bordon said, we're going to get the hell out of Dodge, but take Dodge with us. See, that doesn't coincide with the change in trajectory. This goes along with the other suggestion that we would create a wormhole. And if you remember, I think it was said that Earth would pop in at 2036. Like just a millisecond in the ether. It's kind of like that movie Interstellar where, you perceive time differently. So even a 1/100th of a second in the ether might equal 36 years here in our time period. To us, we wouldn't even notice. Nothing happened, right? It's just a blink. And I was wondering, we've never talked about this, Karen.
No. There was a lot of flack. There was a lot of issues going on as we did this, and the group did the activity together, and it's written up a bit in Les Penry's work. And we didn't say who we were, so you and we're outing ourselves right now to talk about the fact that we were in the group.
Which I think is wonderful, because this is one reason I'm really excited.
I've had time to think about it. For one thing, I had after the intention time that we had, I had ongoing monitoring and information coming in and visionary stuff coming in. And after one particular session, I had quite like this envisionment of what was going on. And then also I would say that I'm now comfortable enough to say that there's some timeline alteration as well, because of timeline I belong to some time groups, and they're talking about what's happened to people noticing the glitches in the matrix. I talked to a young man on Wednesday. He was a junior high student, and he said he and his friend were getting ready to dive in a pool, and they were midair, and they suddenly were standing back at the side of the pool, and they were totally dry. They hadn't dived in, and they were like completely freaking out. It happened to both of them at the same time. And you start to talk to people, you'll find these weird time anomaly things in their personal life. But there's a time issue as well. But I would say, let me give a quick rundown on the vision that I had after one of the sessions. I'm in a large bubble, and it's like a grid, like a blue grid all around, really large, big enough to hold our planet. And I see these shadowy figures coming toward me, very huge, very tall. I mean, they'd be, if you had the Earth on one side and them on the other, almost as tall as the Earth. They're just gigantic. And they came into view, and they were literally like Shiva, like the blue people. They looked exactly like you go to an Indian restaurant and you see the blue people on the calendar on the wall.
Right.
I mean, they literally look just like that, with the same beatific smiles and just like they're up to mischief. They're just wonderful. Good, positive feeling from them. And they didn't say a word. What they did is they flashed me back to a period of time in my life when my father was his driving instructor. And he had this car that had 2 steering wheels. And it would be whenever the driver, the new young driver that wasn't doing very well, he could flip a switch and he could side drive from the right side of the car and get them to safety. He didn't have that job very long. It was awful nerve-wracking. But anyway, but when I was a child, he would let me pretend I was driving with this giant driving wheel. And what I loved about that vision is you'd have to know me very intimately to know what that felt like. And I knew I wasn't driving, but I thought I was. I was pretending to. I was a little kid. Well, that's the feeling I got, is like our whole group intention was they're letting us pretend to drive for a while and say, hey, this is where we'd like to take our vehicle, the Earth, to a different situation. And so, but they're actually there to let us believe we're doing it, because we start to take responsibility for ourselves as a collective. We start to become aware where we are in space and time. And in my feeling that I could drive was just that second there where I could be a grown-up, I could have grown-up responsibilities, and where would I take this car? That was kind of an instantaneous feeling of what they're kind of wanting us to do, is come to a space where we are becoming aware of where we are and responsible for ourselves. And then I did get the feeling this giant blue grid where it was in was almost that Dyson sphere feeling, this protective layer of our manifested reality, that we could go to a different place if we participated with all the beings that do, I guess, they run the whole universe, right? And another feeling that I've had for a long time is that all the stars and all the planets and all the moons are literally beings that are pretending to be all of that. They're our hosts, like we see it in the Bible, it says the heavenly host, And our dear Miss Gaia is the hostess with the mostest. She's our mama who, lets us ride along on her. And we're now growing up to be a collective that's now aware of driving ourselves into the future or driving ourselves through the universe. What is our destiny? And that was the feeling I got. But I'm not sure if it was done with, obviously pulling us out of our orbit or pulling a big planet out of our orbit. All that kind of billiard balls is a little scary when you think of planetary mechanics. But I'm thinking a timeline change, pulling us into an alternate timeline where the trajectories are a little bit different. And as we know, there's infinite sort of timelines that are possible. And my dear giant ancestor taught me about the topography of time. X is the timeline, the linear time you're on. Y is the adjacent timelines that you could be on. And Z is when you come up above all the timelines and you get this samadhi experience where you can see all the potentials. And that's what I think is that we kind of pulled ourselves into Z space to see what's our potential. And maybe we wouldn't know how to do it exactly, but we had this intention for a certain outcome. And we got to participate in it a little bit. And that's the feeling I got.
Right on. That's
wow.
It's perfect because exactly what I said. It's our intention that was like, even people don't know, and we haven't even talked about this much. See, this is why I think it's really important that we're talking about this right now. Because first of all, I think I can prove ar-bordon has saved humanity multiple times. This wasn't the first time. And, if I never said anything, we didn't say anything, no one would ever know. I'm like, or even the stuff we did, I'm like, it doesn't seem right that, I don't know. But, I remember them saying, too, is when they were going to try this, it hadn't been done ever. It was like a new thing. Even the Anunnaki was like, man, we've never used this technology. And it does get into these monoliths that we were talking about, too, that they have these, Buzz Aldrin, said that, we found a monolith on one of the moons on Mars, and and Buzz revealed on a TV show, he's like, wait till people know it's there, they're going to ask who put it there. And ar-bordon released in one of the Linkage Institute minutes, he said that these monoliths are on all nodal points of the ley line systems on all planets. What was it, 7 planets from Sol or the Sun. So these things can help manage tectonic plate shifting and whatnot, and AR said that actually this system did work very well the last passage of Nibiru. So I think that's part of it as well. But this gets into a really interesting thing because do you guys know of the show called The Pyramid Code? It's a History Channel show.
We're kind of off the grid, and we don't get television.
Yeah, me neither.
You're pretty much well better off, but this is a really good show we're talking about we don't know the history, and this is really putting things together with the hidden history of what we don't know yet. But this woman who was the originator and creator of this History Channel series called The Pyramid Code. I'm trying to find this here because it's really important with what we're talking about. Her name is Dr. Carmen Boulter, Boulter. I'm going to share this right now with you, Sasha and Janet, so the listeners can go to your page and find it. This is historical, and I just shared it to my own timeline. I just did it again. Wow, this ain't working real well. Well, find it on my Facebook wall. I'll get it to you later. But her name is Carmen Boulter, and she is a leading Egyptologist, but very enlightened. And she says she was actually on one of the Atlantis committees that were, the reason she's even doing this work. But what they found using brand new, I'm just going to read what I have here. New Egyptian discovery. This discovery is really reality changing and history in the making. Using high-definition satellite-based ground-penetrating radar, massive structures and chambers appear on 2 distinct levels at 60 feet and 130 feet below the Harara Labyrinth Egyptian complex. Some of these rooms and chambers are the size of Olympic swimming pools and filled with gold and artifacts. And some of the other rooms are actually the size of shopping centers. They're huge.
Wow.
And they said that this brand new satellite-based ground-penetrating radar is using quantum computing algorithms, and it's so high-tech that our government uses it in California to find water under the ground. So it has a very well-formed basis for being accurate because they find it with this technology, and then they go and drill and find underground rivers or whatnot. And they said that this ground-penetrating radar can tell the difference between diamonds, silver, gold, the whole layout of rooms and everything. And they said before with ground-penetrating radar, once you went down and say you hit an object, if there was something underneath that object, you were just screwed because that's where it ends for you. But this software is different, and it can keep going. And what they did was map this whole complex. They know it's there now. And all these rooms are connected by hallways, and they said the hallways alone would be over 1 mile of hallways that are connecting these huge giant rooms filled with artifacts and gold. And it said they have to at least be 100,000 years old. And they said right now they're working with the Egyptian government now that Zawi Hawass is out of there because he was holding back everything. They said the truth of the matter is, they don't even need to excavate. They got the technology now to just drill one hole down there and put in like a 3D mapping radar system, and we can have they said, well, right now she's working with a Hollywood computer graphics artist to take this data and make it into virtual reality so we can actually see what's there. And so this is mind-blowing because we're talking about their technology and whatnot. It sounds like to me, first of all, doesn't it sound like one of the Wingmaker's chambers, Karen?
Yes, it does. It also sounds like Edgar Casey was predicting underground chambers full of Hall of Records kind of thing, too.
Hall of Records, yes.
Yeah, and
yes.
Brett and I have been working on quite a bit of research pertaining to the early era, the era of the Pelagian Empire, the Inca, the Scythian, the very, very early pre-Ice Age and during the Ice Age and after. And the whole concept of the underworld, subterranean situation, for instance, in Cappadocia, Turkey, there's a very, very large, underground city of like 20,000 people. And also, underground caves literally all over around the Black Sea area. And also, I don't know if you guys have heard the story of the Bashigi Mountain Caverns, but they found, this is Peter Moon, the Transylvania Sunrise, Yad Cinemas.
Yes, we've been
where they found, in Romania, where they found subterranean, under the mountains, they found these large areas with tables and chairs for people 12 foot tall and holographic displays. But I also been following through on stories from Romania and Albania, and I found it in Romania. They found these underground caves that were had water in them, so they didn't explore it. But they put, one of the things they do for hydrology testing is they put a dye pack in the water, and then they try to see where it comes out. And so they did that, and it came out in California.
Wow!
Water. It hurts your brain to think of. And also, they said that in the Bashigi Mountain complex, there were 3 large hallways or tunnels. One apparently went to Egypt, one apparently went to Tibet, and the other one went to Egypt, Tibet, and I'm blanking. Iraq. And so we have a whole underground history. And one of the things also, I don't know if you've been paying attention to David Wilcock and what he's been saying since the Conscious Life Expo in February, but he's now talking about how these giant races, the progenitor races, came into the solar system in Saturn and the outer planets, and they worked their way in, and as they worked their way in, they got kind of smaller. But it's this idea of the ancient people talking about the Titans, and these beings were like 70 to 100 feet tall, and then the next sort of size down is 36 feet tall, and then 12 to 10, then kind of getting towards our size. But the idea is that they've hollowed out all of the moons. Like most of the moons used to be occupied by these beings. Our moon, that's no moon, it's a space station, working with the Lunar Anomaly Research Society. And the idea would be that you didn't come onto a planet on the surface. You came, being on the surface, of course, is risky because you can't control the weather or the environment. And so the beings would come from like their mothership, and then they would go underground under a planet, like we know that there's bases under Mars that are very underground, that are very old. And then they were on the moon. They were in moon bases under the surface of the moon, and sometimes on top of domes that people are finding. And when they look at these lunar photographs and whatnot, but that they came from the outer space or the moon or something like that to underground facilities first, before they then later, or their offspring would emerge then onto the surface of the Earth, because they couldn't live on the surface of the Earth naturally. They had to mate with the indigenous or have some kind of breeding program or hybridization program that would allow them to even come onto our surface. So this is very, very, very old, indication of how there was these incursions into our human genome at different times so that they could survive on the surface. But there's a whole story of the subterranean, the underworld, the hollow earth, and all of those kind of things. There is so much stuff coming out, it blows my mind. I've been on the Internet since before there was an Internet. I'm a computer science background, and we used to have bulletin board systems. And then we had the Internet, and then this stuff is just exploded on how much information that's available.
Well,
I'm really excited about all of it.
I just want to say one thing, though. I'll pass it back, and we've got about 14 minutes left. I was just reminded of this giant that was revealed from the Boxing Day Christmas tsunami of 2004. There was a YouTube, and it was probably the 36 feet high skeleton that was washed up on shore. I wonder if it's still on there. I'm trying to find it now, but I remember watching the YouTube a couple times. So these good things get pulled. You got to download them and put them on your own computer. But
yeah, you got to grab them and archive them. Exactly.
I don't see it coming up now.
I hear a lot of talk about the Grand Canyon as well, that there's some cavern systems and a lot of artifacts and stuff in the Grand Canyon.
Well, the pyramids are all over. They're on the ley lines all over the planet, so they're in the Grand Canyon as well.
And the Chaco Canyon culture, the Anasazi culture, they talk about being underground and being taken care of by the ant people. So there's that Native American story of being underground and then emerging out back on the surface again. So that's a whole bunch of history that has been buried, not to make a pun, but it kind of has been buried and is now coming to light.
Yeah, didn't they cover that, Giorgio, in the Ancient Aliens show? They kind of got into that as well. I'm excited, for all this to be revealed, because I think you were in on this meeting where AR took me into like a 6-person Skype meeting, and they're all level, like people of his level, and they're talking about disclosure. And they said, they went around and said, you tell us how you think disclosure should happen. And each one of us just gave our opinion. Were you in on that meeting, Karen? Does that sound familiar? Hello.
Karen, you still with us?
Karen?
Is Karen still with
Karen,
us?
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
Let me look at the back end. Here, let me try. Let's get back on. Karen, wait. Hi, somehow you were muted.
No, I got knocked off the air. I start talking about Chaco Canyon, I get knocked off the air. There you go.
Every time.
I'm sorry. What meeting was that? What meeting was that?
I don't know if you were in on this meeting, but there was I was brought into a meeting by AR, and there were it went around. There's 6 people, and this is one of the funniest things too, because obviously, when I do these things, I don't have a camera. I don't like myself being seen. So on this little Windows screen cam I had it kind of facing away, and I had this little Buddha statue that's only about 3 inches high, but it was right in front of the camera. And this meeting starts, and I hear AR go, Michael. I realize, that probably looks pretty weird, And I moved. I go, don't worry, it's just a little statue. And he started laughing. I've never heard it like that. Thought I transformed into a Buddha or something. But in this, they asked us all for our own opinion on how to handle disclosure. And a lot of people were worried in this discussion about how the panic of the masses and how it would relate to religion and stuff. And I thought, well, if that's the truth, then why don't we reveal the reality of this intelligence in Earth's past first? Then it's not in people's faces, and it's got to take the fear away to know, well, if they've been here this long and intertwined in human history and we're here, that says something. It's actually humans that are the Canada Prime Minister. What was his name, Karen? I just said, maybe
Paul Hellyer was the Department of Defense, who's very out of the box as far as this kind of topic. Paul Hellyer.
Yes, indeed. He was acting in such a violent, warlike way towards them might not be the best idea. And maybe we should be talking about this on a worldwide level. It's pretty much what he said, which I totally agree with. But it's us. You know, they have to be patient if they've put up with us shooting at them for 60 years or whatever, you know. The more technology we got, it seems like we just totally used it to try to shoot them.
Yeah, it gets weaponized. I think they already are in contact with us. I think we're already in a process. I believe there's a protocol. I mean, this is what, like our virginal first time is planet Earth to find out about our galactic neighbors. And I think that they've done this millions of times over, and they have a protocol. And I think the protocol is exactly what's going on right now, which is us sharing, you know, things that people just don't normally share unless maybe it's around a campfire or something, and it's a scary ET story. I don't know. But having this conversation right now is the protocol is to me, exposure is the disclosure. So they're exposing themselves to us as much as we can handle individually and collectively. And then we're supposed to talk about it. We've got to get this out of the closet and not let people pin us down as being tinfoil hat wearing people or jokes about anal probes or whatever, and just say, hey, this is not funny. This isn't my experience, and that's not fair. To ridicule me like you wouldn't ridicule a crippled person, well, don't ridicule me either. And so this is a conversation that we have, and we talk about it, and we talk to each other. And if nobody talks to us because they don't think we're credible, then let's just talk to each other and talk out loud like you're doing right now. And then they're going to continue this. They've not stopped their exposure to more and more people of every single kind of strata of society, all over the planet. That hasn't stopped. So the conversation's happening, and that is the protocol. And what happens is like it'll be just a no big deal by the time that, you know, society does its disclosure to, you know, pulls a rabbit out of the hat or whatever. It won't be that big of a deal because we have already processed it in some way. I'm stunned at how many people tell me how much they love the show Ancient Aliens. Like I'm in the Bible Belt, so this is like an interesting kind of people that come and tell me how they love that show. And I want to tell them the aliens aren't that ancient. They're kind of right here already. So, but that's cool. We'll go with ancient. Yeah, we'll go with ancient.
Rather than panic, I think there'll be widespread relief to be free of the 1% and their controlling Anunnaki. I think people will celebrate.
I do.
I believe that too, Sasha.
This discussion is the 3% phenomenon of the morphogenic field is being right now fed with our discussion, which is going out into the waves, and it's affecting humanity, which is receiving this information, being changed, and that goes back up into the morphogenic field. It's like the cycle keeps going, and it keeps up-leveling us. And I've noticed this with my other friend. We started in 2012 talking about it. And things, ever since we started just having the discussion, we don't have to talk to a specific person. We're just feeding these discussions into the grid. It is changing all of humanity and up-leveling. And that's why I encourage people to talk about it, spread this link, talk about it. Even if you don't believe it 100%, just look at the evidence, look at the information, because we're co-creating this. Why do we want to co-create Armageddon? What's fun with that? Everybody's going to die. Grandma, the kids are going to die. No, we've got to wrap our heads around something fun and enlightening and spiritual and happy. We need a happy ending. We need to be Princess Leia and the end of the first Star Wars, where everybody was singing and dancing and celebrating. So get behind that reality, and we will co-create it. And it starts with the conversation.
Oh,
we have a few minutes left. Okay, let me see how much time we have left. Okay, we have 5 minutes left. So let's go back around. Sasha, you want to say something real quick, and we'll go back to Michael and Karen.
I still want to know about ancient coming and whether and just who Allah was. But this last discussion, it keeps going through my mind about how 3% that starts the ball rolling. I told a joke and started the whole world laughing.
Indeed. I love that song.
Yeah.
So, Michael, what would you like to say in the last minute or two? Somebody's breathing too hard. Don't breathe.
I'm sorry. I'm on the phone. You know what? I want to share a story because it deals with what Karen said about how we're perceived and laughed at and whatnot. I did a show for Spike TV. It's not been allowed to be aired for various reasons, but it was finished. And during the wrap, after 6 months of working with them and everything we went through, the last thing was the host asked me, Michael, what are you going to say to the people who watch this show and still don't believe you and don't believe in the UFO subject? And all I said was, I'm sorry you're so misinformed. And there was this lull and this awkward silence in the room, and the head producer from Spike TV came out. He goes, are you kidding me? We just did 6 months, and that's what you have to say? Sorry you're so misinformed. I'm like, all right, I get it. I'll say something more. But I really feel like that. It's like if anyone stop watching what's happening with Bruce Jenner and take that time and look into Stephen Greer and the Disclosure Project and all these high-level people from, the military-industrial complex that are now coming forward, it's pretty straightforward. I think anyone would come to the same conclusion if you just do a little homework and look into it with an open mind.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share that story.
Well, thank you. Karen, what would you like to say?
I would like to say that the experiencer movement is going to be very cool. It's a big deal. Right now we're doing that survey, so go to experiencer.org and take the survey. This is a historical event, and it's also personally satisfying because you'll really sit there as you answer those questions on the free experiencer page. You'll start to stretch your mind about all the different experiences that are connected. An awful lot of experiencers also have had a near-death experience. It's very common. And there's going to be questions like that on there. So that's experiencer.org, and take the survey. And join us on Free Experiencers group on Facebook, because I think this is the thing that's going to push it over the goal line, so to speak, is experiencers talking to each other, starting to get a more cohesive picture of their own experience. This is the protocol. It's peer-to-peer. It's personal. They want to get to know us, like, if we have a foreign exchange student program or foreign pen pal, that's the idea of it, that they're doing. It's already happening. It's already happening to people that are listening right now. And so get into that side of the box as well, and you'll find, that you're not alone. You are not alone personally. You have people who also have experiences, and it's weird, and we're trying to figure it out, and it's a puzzle. But we can do it together. You don't have to be by yourself.
All right. We're at the end of the show. So basically, if you're an experiencer and you want to be on the show and let us interview you, you can use your real name or a pseudonym and tell your story. Your story helps to shift the morphogenic field and up-level humanity for all of us. Next week, we're going to do another part 2 of this show. We've got, I guess, Michael, you're coming. Karen, you're welcome. We're being joined by Charlotte and PJ. I don't have their last names in front of me. And Glenn Vogue. So it'll be a little bit bigger panel. We'll get around the round table. This is the second in the series. Last week we did an interview with Karen Patrick. You can look for the archive on aquariumradio.com. And we're going to keep talking about this and, get different people who have pieces of the puzzle. Our AR story, we didn't even touch the surface of what AR was presenting in his information. And I'll get all the links up there. Michael, send me the links. Karen, send me the links. And we'll put them up there. And I think that this is the time we do it and we shift it for everybody, because we've got to get out of this perverted matrix into the sacred matrix. All right. Thank you much. Love and blessings. Aloha.
Aloha. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.